Hello, everybody. My name is Michelle Grenier, and I am from the University of New Hampshire. Welcome. I'm very pleased to be presenting this session on access and equity through universal design for learning. What is universal design for learning? It is really something that prepares an instructional planning and delivery framework intended to increase meaningful access and reduce barriers to learning for all students, including those with diverse needs. So really, it makes learning available to all your students. It considers the needs of the broadest possible range of users from the beginning. So when you're thinking about your classroom, you're thinking about everybody, not just the students who are very athletic, but you're thinking about how to make your classroom available to everybody. And it really began not in education, but in architecture. So as we look at this building, we see there's really only one way to get into the building, up the stairs. And if you have mobility issues or issues with walking, it's going to be a challenge. On the other hand, let's take a look at these two pools. So the one on my left is a pool with a ladder that requires you to step in. So again, there's only one way to get in, and you have to be able to use the ladder. The pool on my right, on the other hand, has a ramp that allows you to slide right in, whether you can walk, whether you use a chair, whether you're a child, whether you're an older adult. But this type of entry allows everybody to go in without notice and easily. Also here, you'll see a zero entry. That means people can walk in without having to step. At one point, I noticed somebody in the pool who had been using a wheelchair. And really, it was quite simple. The wheelchair was rolled in, she was transferred into the wheelchair, and then brought back out. So when we transfer this to our classrooms, we think, how can we make learning available to everybody without pushing those aside who potentially need it most? Again, when we look at universal design for learning, we're thinking about equipment for everybody. So in this case, these are skateboards. And we have large skateboards and small skateboards, skateboards with poles, skateboards for any use, so that if I choose to do skateboarding, I'm probably going to pick the big board because that's what I need. Whereas somebody who is more advanced is going to take a smaller, sleeker board. So as you can see, universal design is how can you think about your gymnasium or your classroom so that all students can access it. And I'm going to take a little pause here and I'm going to show a video, okay? And this will give you a little idea of what UDL is. So hold on.
Universal Design for Learning in Physical Education. So what is universal design for learning? Every student learns and is motivated by different things, depending on their background, experience, successes, and interests. Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, supports the various ways that students receive, process, and express information. For example, a teacher may have second graders chase bubbles for a warm-up with music. Some students may find this challenging and fun. Others may find it dull and boring with no challenge. Yet some may be terrified of the noise, crowd, and running into people. This is where UDL comes in. Universal Design for Learning directs the creation of the learning experiences to proactively meet the needs of all students. The three main components of UDL. Multiple means of representation is the what of learning, how the information is given to students. Giving information to students is just the first part. Showing the material in many different ways ensures that all students will be able to make sense of the content. For example, you can use students for demonstration, show a video of the skill or sport practice, or demonstrate the skill or activity yourself with the students verbally following along. Multiple means of engagement is the why of learning. The first thing to consider in this area is reducing students' discomfort and distraction and urging each student to take risks without being forced out of their comfort zone. Utilizing strategies to get students excited about learning, to help them sustain interest in learning tasks, and to know and regulate themselves. Multiple means of action and expression is the how of learning. How can you assess what the students know? How physical action can be incorporated? How levels of support can be added? How knowledge and skills can be expressed? In this area, give options for students to express what they know and can do. For example, when assessing how fast students can move from point A to B, you can allow them to choose the distance and the way they want to move, who they want to move with, the music that is playing, and the goals that they set. Help students set goals, manage information, and teach students how to monitor their progress toward learning goals. Unique and important features of UDL. Universal design starts in the lesson planning phase. It's not something that is added after the lesson is created. The variations are embedded into the lessons from the start. The universally designed options are for every student, not just students with disabilities or those on 504 plans. For example, when teaching striking, give students choice for equipment or how to strike. Have high expectations for all students. Generalization of UDL. It is important for students to learn the curriculum using the UDL approach. It is important to remember that the students should also learn the traditional equipment and rules for each sport and activity. By learning the traditional equipment and rules, the students know what they need to advocate for when they are involved in community programming. To review, there are three main components of UDL: multiple means of representation, the what of learning; multiple means of engagement, the why of learning; multiple means of action and expression, the how of learning. UDL starts in the lesson planning phase, has high expectations for all students, and asks all students to learn traditional equipment and rules as well as the UDL approach. So now you know the basics of UDL. Try it out yourself.
Excellent. So there you have it, universal design for learning. Really, it's important to consider planning in the beginning, and the 3 points that we'll go over: engagement, representation, and action and expression are the fundamentals for universal design for learning. So when we consider engagement, that first piece, it's like, how do you engage the kids? What's the hook? What are some things that they like? I mean, in this case, it's food, but you want music, or you want an activity that is engaging, not that's going to turn them away. So think about what's really important to them and how you can make your learning gym and your learning environment attractive. That is the first thing. The second thing is representation. So how are you teaching? Are you just teaching by talking? Are you teaching by showing? Are you teaching by peer modeling? Are there visuals? So what other ways are you engaging the student learning? So it's not just seeing, but it's hearing, it's listening, seeing, and talking and modeling. So that's very important that you have multiple ways to deliver the instruction. Action and expression. Basically, one size does not fit all. So here we have down below hula hoops, multiple ways to shoot your hoop. Do you want it high? Do you want low? Do you want 2 ways through? And in this case, we have a student who's bowling, and that's his target. He's in a chair. But they're both showing how you can demonstrate your learning in different ways, but you're still learning. So you're not evaluated in the same way by the same measures because not everybody has the same skills or has the same abilities. Okay, so UDL in physical education is really for all students, and that's what we're trying to reinforce here. The need to create a learning environment for all students. And in other sections of this conference, I'll talk about the LERSP and how we need to have peer supports, different instructional models. So all of these presentations are complementary in that sense. Again, I want to reinforce the three principles: engagement, representation, and action and expression. So what are the ways that you're getting students to be active? Excuse me. How are you pulling them in? The second principle, representation. How are you teaching them? And the third, action and expression. And again, representation, if I'm looking in this case, how we're teaching you, it's both via Zoom, you have a translator, you have the opportunity for the PowerPoint. So there's multiple means to represent the learning. Action and expression, how are you going to apply that in your teaching? And each of you will apply that differently in your teaching. How can UDL help? Most importantly, you have to think about how you're going to plan for your class. It's not something that happens after the fact. It happens before. Who are your students? What are their interests? What are their skills? And what are their abilities? So planning is very important. As we saw in the note on architecture building, you have to design your classroom so that everybody can participate. Multiple materials, use lots of equipment, different ways to engage students, different ways for them to use equipment and choice. And accessibility, make sure that learning is available for everybody. What is the environment like? Too noisy, too loud? What's the surface like? Is the skill that you're teaching, are there options for students to participate in that skill? Again, to reinforce what UDL means, it's reducing barriers. Reducing barriers means that you're going to optimize level of challenges and support, and you're going to meet the needs of all learners from the start. And that may require collaboration with special ed teams, with your physical education teacher, physical therapist, speech therapist, occupational therapist, special ed director. So who are the other people who can help you to build a healthy classroom? And what it all leads to is access and engagement. So here we're going to see a little video. And in this, note the student swimming on the lane closest to this woman and how he has the supports needed in order to participate in a very competitive event with his peers. Okay, he's short stature. So what we figured out is ways to enhance his skill. He worked really, really hard, but you see he had a noodle to help his arms. He had flippers on his feet, and all of those pieces of equipment gave him an equal opportunity to engage with his peers. He ended up getting out of the pool, and boy, he was a happy, happy child. So a few simple measures enabled this young man to participate in a competitive event. Okay, we're going to look at it a little bit too in the classroom and what that means. So here you see the same activity, throwing and catching with a scarf. Classroom in the gymnasium. But this young man on the right had difficulty. It was a little too fast paced. It was a little too quick for him. And so we had an option, and you'll see what happens in this first video. Just take a look at what they're doing. Great, having a good time, running, throwing, catching. But Austin here on the right, that wasn't going to work for him. So we scaled it down a bit. We made it accessible for him. We provided a peer support to engage him and help him with his instruction. Smaller scale, slowed it down. He also was then able to show us what he could learn, what he knew.
3. Nice job. 1, 2, 3. Nice. 2. Right? One more. 1, 2, 3. Nice.
See, so that's what we're talking about. It's like just break down that skill, make it available to him. And he, again, was a happy, happy student. So planning, important thing. For us in the United States, we have grade level outcomes. We have questions that we ask the students. We have I can questions, statements. What can the student do? And then we have cues. So this is a pretty thoughtful planner right here who's thinking about all aspects of her lessons and how they can be shared both face-to-face and remotely. She's also made these lesson plans with videos. Okay. And again, when she evaluates or assesses, she has different levels. So not everybody has to do the same thing, but she knows where they are and they're included in this assessment so that she can know what their skill and level of abilities are, and she can improve upon that. Again, she has her written lesson plans, but she also has videos. I'm not going to pull the video on, but basically it's a demonstration of dribbling. So students can learn face-to-face, they can learn remotely. There's a timer on the right that gives them a visual reminder of how much is going on. Okay. And I think during this age of remote learning, teachers have had to adapt and do a lot of different things to make learning accessible. And this again is an example. Okay. Skill breakdown. We see stepping, we see bringing the foot back. And again, with each cue, it's reinforced with a picture. And there'll also be live demonstrations here. So when we talk about representation, I know as a learner, I can see it, I can feel it, I can hear it, and I'll be able to do it. Okay, different activities and progressions. What's the next step? Soccer shootout. Let's just put a target in there. Okay, so here we have a target, different ways to execute the skill. And then because in this classroom, there are some students who have limited mobility. One child in particular uses a chair. What this teacher has done is to demonstrate sitting with the skills to do. Okay, and again, what we see here is verbal cues, visual cues, what she is going to look for, the teacher is going to look for in student learning. Okay, and again, this is going to have peer support, different balls, depending on the size and the skill, different feet. But as a student, I know I am still a part of this lesson. Modifications over here, learn the student's functional skills from the occupational therapist and the physical therapist, create skills and an environment and opportunities to connect their prior learning, collaborate. All lesson plans and videos are shared. So when we look at universal design, in this situation in particular, this is one teacher creating a very dynamic environment, but working with occupational therapists and physical therapists so that she can reach her students. She's able to work with them and teach them, but they're also able to give them information. And in this way, students of all levels, disabilities, not disabilities, are able to participate in the lesson. So consider that when you think about teaching and your classroom. UDL, engagement, representation, and action and expression. Those are the key foundations in order to make your environment more accessible, again, to all students, not just students with disabilities. Okay. Similarly here, she has the extended activity with a shootout and a target, different targets depending whether students are at home or in the gymnasium. Thoughtful consideration of that. So on this last slide, we have a few references, and you saw a picture of the book. Some of the videos came from NICPAD. CAST organization is also a great resource for you learning about universal design. I want to thank you all for listening to this session, and hopefully we get to do this live. All right, good luck, everybody. Thank you.